Hello, and welcome to Stories from the View, a podcast from the Pleasant View Senior Center in East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. On this podcast, we invite East Longmeadow residents to tell us stories about their lives and events. And today we have Toni DiMichaela and Maria Cocavilla Wilson. So today, your host is Mary Genoan Kaplan, and here she is.
Thank you, Eric. Good morning, Toni and Maria.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming and joining us today. We are so excited to hear your intertwined stories. Now, we're going to start with Toni, and our listeners will be happy to know that this story doesn't really begin in East Longmeadow, but in Italy. So, Toni, tell us, you started your life in Italy.
Yes, I was born in a small town, and we call ourselves Neapolitans because it's near Naples, and the dialect we speak is the Neapolitan dialect. And the small town is called Quindici, which means 15. It's the number 15, and there's a story behind it. How did it get its name? And one of the varieties that I know is that it was started by 15 Romans. That 15 families. And it was debated, what do we call it? So the decision was, there are 15 of us, let's call it Quindici 15. So that's one of the stories behind the name. Yeah. So, it's the Amalfi Coast area, Sorrento area, Naples area, but it's a small town in the mountains. I came here at the age of 9, because my father has siblings here. And my uncle and aunt, wrote to him and said, bring the kids here. This was after World War II. And Italy was devastated. It was going through, a revival, a rebirth, or rebuilding. So we did. We came here in 2 parts. First, my brother and 2 siblings, and then my mother, myself, and 2 other siblings. There are 5 children in the family. And we settled in the south end of Springfield because that's where my aunt and uncle were on my father's side. And there were a lot of Italians there. And it made it easy for my parents to go shopping, to go to the store, to meet other people that came from the town. And they were called paesani, from the paese, from the town. So it was a renewal of friendship. And it made it easy for the transition, especially for my parents. But for me, it probably was easier because at the age of 9, I went to school. My older siblings that were older went to work. And going to work meant helping a family out.
And where did they work?
Let's see. There was a factory down the South End, Carter's, that did children's wear. It's okay. Yeah, my sister worked there. And there was a balloon factory that made, beach balls and stuff, in the South End.
So there was factory work for new immigrants.
Yeah, there were. My father worked at Mount Carmel, the church. He was a sacristan there and well respected. He will be there to set up for weddings, for funerals, for the masses. So he was well known in the community there. And I went to Howard Street School. And the principal there was also Italian. And one of the teachers, Mr. Marsili, God bless him, beautiful person, in grade 6. I started off with non-speaking Italian teachers, wonderful teachers, Mrs. Ash, lovely people that taught me English. It was total immersion at the time. We didn't have any special programs. And struggle for a while. I would get words mixed up, kitchen, chicken. I know they sounded the same to me. But as children do, you go outside and you play and you pick up words. So the transition was probably easiest for me and my younger brother. And I always loved learning things. I loved going to school. So I continue my education. My parents encouraged me to continue my education. And I went from Harvestry School. I went to Classical Junior High School and then to the High School of Commerce. My older brother said, go to Classical, it's more for college. But the guidance counselor from Commerce convinced me to go there because he said, we have a college prep course and a business course so that our graduates are prepared for both worlds. And not knowing the financial situation or where it was going to go for me because, we didn't have means to guarantee financially a college education, I made a decision. I made the decision to go to the High School of Commerce. It's exactly what I did. I took college prep and business. And both of those, it turned out to be a great decision.
As a young teenager, you made a good life choice.
No, did the best. Okay, it turned out well. The Lord was guiding me. And then college, I applied locally because I wasn't going to dorm there because that would not be acceptable for my parents to go away from home. It would have had to be something that was local and I could go home every night. Because a young lady just doesn't leave home like that. We got to keep in mind that my parents came into this country, but their mentality was set. Okay, where I came over with certain set things from my younger years, but I was more, open to new changes. Of course, as all young people are. So a young lady just didn't leave home. So I applied to the Elms, College of Our Lady of the Elms, AIC, and Westfield. Westfield was the hardest one because of transportation. I didn't have a car, but I got accepted into all three. I was interviewed. My Mr. Sweeney, my high school principal, loved him, very helpful. I met people along the way that helped me navigate the educational system. And that stayed with me. And it became something that I wanted to do. When I went into education later and became a guidance counselor at Central High School, then I had the position of head of the guidance department. It was something of giving back. It not only it was a job, yes, but it was a job that I loved. I loved helping others that didn't have the answers, that were given to me, and I wanted the opportunity to give to them, especially those that had difficulty with the language. I had majored in Spanish. I taught Spanish. So I welcomed them all. Whether it was Spanish speaking or Arabic, I understand they were from someplace else and they were navigating a new system, and they all loved their children and they all wanted the best for their children and they didn't know what to do. One day a mother came in my guidance office and says, Mrs. DiMichaela, I see this in the paper that for $500, I can get somebody to help my child choose a college. And the application process. I told her, Mrs. So-and-so, I says, save your money. That's my job. I will do that. You do not have to spend $500. And it would have been very hard-earned money for them. And it was a pleasure to do all of that. And I loved my jobs as an educator. I love to see the young people develop. I love my job as a teacher, teaching languages. I was teaching Spanish and Italian at Classical High School. And to converse with other people opens doors. Just even if it's a minimal amount, it opens door into their thinking, their emotions, and their acceptance of you. I find that thrilling, and I love the whole process. This is why here now I'm teaching here at the senior center, and you make friendships. You'd like say little jokes in Italian. You equate words to the English language. You put together, you sing a song. You talk about the food. You have a meal together. The whole culture. Right now, one of my classes, we're doing operas. Okay, talking about Verdi, what did he wrote, and what some of the operas, what they're about. It's simple Italian. So it's very simple Italian. They're explaining operas to their classmates. And so it's a variety of things, but it's all wonderful. It's all human connected. I think that's probably the basic thing, that they're all human connected. And I'm going off to a different tangent. So
No, but
bring me back.
I want to
Bring me
pull you back for one quick tangent because can you talk a little bit about how you got involved here at the Senior Center? Because I think that's kind of a cool little story.
Well, yeah, I got involved. Here I was retired, and it was COVID. And I saw an announcement in your paper there, okay, the news, that you were looking for people to call shut-ins and just to talk to them, connect with them. I saw that announcement. I said, I've done that all. That's my job. I've done that, talk to people. I have a degree in guidance. I was a certified social worker. I was certified. And I said, oh, I love that. Sure, I'll do that. So I applied for that, and it was a long time. I guess you do a background
yes,
check.
You have to be a Corey check to make sure you're a good person.
So I filled out the application. I'm telling my husband, boy, they wanted a lot of stuff. I sent the application in, and I didn't hear anything. I waited. I said, I want to do this. So then I called Alicia. I called, and it was Alicia. They answered the phone that I spoke to. I said, I put this in my, is it going anywhere? Is it still available? Are you still going to do it? She said, well, actually, I was looking your application, and I noticed that you were teaching Spanish and Italian. Would you be willing to do Italian on Zoom? Because we're still doing Zoom at the time.
That's so COVID, yeah.
Yeah,
You gotta
I
do
said,
it.
sure, I'll do it. So I was doing once a week. I was doing Italian with students, and it was fun. And Alicia was one of my students. So that's how we got started. And then from that, when the band was off, I started teaching here in person.
Now, I happen to be in the building at another activity while you're teaching. And I will say, you have 2 classes, not just one, and those rooms are full. It's very popular to take Italian with Toni. Now, sitting here, you're not the only person in the room. Maria is next to you. And perhaps you two can explain what your connections are and how we put this team together today. So what's the connection between you two people?
I think I'll let Maria speak now.
It's easy enough. Tanette Toni is my aunt through my mother, and her husband are brother and sister. So there you go. And my parents also came from Italy, so I am first generation. And we grew up in a very Italian household with parents and grandparents living with us. 5 children, and not a very big home. So we kind of all squeezed in, and there was always chaos, as you had said, Eric.
Tell me more. I'm Polish and Lithuanian.
Yeah.
And while I really enjoy Italian cuisine, what does an Italian household mean?
Lots of cooking. Lots of cooking. My mom cooked breakfast, lunch, and dinner at home. There was no restaurant or takeout or food delivery, especially in those days. But it was everything revolved around food. And dinner especially. Breakfast and lunch, we were always on the go, but my grandparents needed to have their breakfast and lunch, so Mom was always home for those times of the day, especially, to take care of them.
And were your grandparents in your household?
Yeah, they lived with us.
So
they
you
came
had an
from Italy.
intergenerational
We
home?
did, very much so. And so the traditions were very much in our home as far as, just the religion, the food, the culture. Every Sunday, of course, the sauce and the pasta dinners and the Italian music on the radio, where Mom would put on her Italian albums. Sunday was the day, as you can imagine. And nothing was open on Sundays back in those days. So Sunday was the family dinner day. And it was always in the middle of the day, which as I got older, I'm like, but Mom, I want to do things on a Saturday or Sunday. But no, you have to have dinner first. And my aunts and uncles would come over. My mom's aunt and uncle, who she had lived with and came over from Italy and stayed with. And so they were very good about having them join us. So that the table was quite busy at dinner time, especially. Yeah.
Lots of chairs pulled up to the
Oh,
table.
yes. And there was always room for more. There was never, nobody was ever turned away. Friends would come over, so that's the chaos. There was never just the 9 of us. It always turned into 12 or even 15.
Never just the 9.
No. Well, she made it look easy, but I can't imagine trying to do that nowadays. But that's what she did. Yeah.
How wonderful.
Yes.
So, how does the Italian traditions continue? Now, Toni, you're teaching, but you also travel to Italy.
Yes.
Maria has traveled. Tell us about your traveling.
Well, now that my husband and I are retired, we were doing it to a lesser degree before. My husband likes to organize groups, and we came up with the idea of bringing groups to a small town. We both travel extensively through Spain and Italy, especially other places, but because teaching these 2 languages, I was drawn more to Spain and to Italy. And it came in the idea of bringing a group to a small town to let them experience the more personal level of the Italian culture actually came to me in Spain. We were in the tour bus, and I saw this small town in the mountain. And I said, I love all of this. I love going to Sevilla, to Madrid, love Granada, my favorite place, okay? Love to read about El Greco and go to El Prado. I love all of this, but I would also like to go into that small town in that mountain and have a dinner with a family, whatever they have. Talk to them about their lives. I said, we can't do that in Spain. I don't have relatives in Spain. We don't have connections in Spain, but we have connections in Italy. So let's try this idea in Italy. And we did. And my husband at first said, who wants to go to a small town? People want to go to the big cities. They want to go to Venice, Rome, Florence, the Amalfi Coast. I said, those are great. But after they see that, or before they see that, they may want to see the pulse, the people, talk to them, and go to where they just sell the meat. Go there where they just sell the bread, okay? Sit down with a family in their home and eat what they eat. And we tried it, and people love it. So we do 2 of those trips. We go in the fall. With the fall, it's not hot, it's not cold, it's wonderful weather. It's also harvest time. We get a group together and we harvest a certain section of the field. We harvest the grapes. All those that are with us put out their gloves, get their shears, and they cut the grapes in their buckets, bring them in, and our guests love doing that. And afterward, that's one of the activities we do with that. And they see how the grapes are separated from the leaves and the stalk and so on. And then they see how it's squashed. And they're introduced to the process of winemaking. And we introduce the process of cheese making. And then they have a big lunch with the family. And I was asked, he said, what do the Americans like to eat? I said, Giovanna, it doesn't matter what they like to eat. You're going to prepare, please, things that you would do on a Sunday. Okay?
The Sunday again.
Yes, it's a big Sunday lunch that the participants get involved with. And it starts with the antipasto. Okay, we got to have the antipasto. Then the primo, which is usually a nice pasta that is made at home, an egg noodle pasta, an egg-based pasta. Then there are meats, not just one meat, the meats that are roasted on an open pit there. You have your salads, you have your contorni, the side dishes. And then you have your fruit, fresh fruit on the table. And then you have your coffee, the demi-tasse, and you have your desserts and your liqueur, your after-dinner drink. There are also before dinner drink, which is the aperitif to open the appetite. but then there's the after dinner drink, and it's a process. It's not just let's just eat. It's a different what is the word in English?
Pace.
In Italian, yeah.
Yeah, in Italian you see il primo, il secondo, the word in English. I can't think of it at the moment. Okay,
Many
so
courses.
it's a process.
Yeah.
Different courses, exactly, right. And you're there sitting down 3, 4, 5 hours. You're talking, and then you have your coffee and you're chatting, and you may be having some nuts or some fruits. And then on the dessert table, you got to have a cake, you got to have a piece of this, you got to try the biscotti, and then so on. So there's a lot of communication. You have people talking to each other in a relaxed atmosphere. And so there's communication, there's sharing, and having a good meal.
It sounds like the world could use a little bit more of this sort of dining.
The travelers love that. It's one of their favorite things to do.
Now, Maria, you are a world traveler. You do a fair amount of personal travel. Would you say that your early cultural experiences has kind of whetted your appetite to check out other places? And
I think so. I mean, growing up, my parents, more so my mom, would always talk about Italy, the old country, what they did, how they lived. And again, it was during that World War II time, and things were not always very easy. If anything, it was pretty tough because of the war. And where they lived in this small town called Macchiagodana, the war literally went right through their town because you had Monte Cassino there, and that also was a target for the war. So it wasn't very happy stories, but the fact that it was genuine and you got to really appreciate what they went through in order to come here, raise a family. We're all educated. We all kind of acclimated to the American way of life, which was what they wanted us, their children, to have. Yeah, that was very important. And then just learning about, Europe, and knowing we had relatives there. And someday I wanted to meet these relatives. And some of them did come and visit us on occasion to America and stayed with us. But there were so many cousins there that we never met. And I thought, well, here's a good opportunity when I got older to finally get to Italy. And we've been there many times, as well as other parts of Europe. But Italy was always in my heart. And it's like a home away from home, because you grow up hearing about the country and the traditions. And I'm sure it's changed over from World War II to, as you said, the country had a rebirth, and it had to, because it got pretty destroyed.
decimated, yeah.
Yeah, especially those areas. So it made you appreciate where you come from. And I think that's why those dinners, when you start talking around a table, these stories come up. And, they knew America was their home, but they always had those conversations about the old country, which as children, it was like, wow, And my grandparents coming from Italy, staying with us, they never really learned English. So we grew up speaking Italian. That was pretty much our first language. Because of my grandparents being there, and then mom and dad would speak English as well, but it was really Italian. That's what was our first language. And again, we always thought that was different because none of my friends had grandparents living with them. None of my friends really spoke another language. And sort of our school lunches, instead of bringing a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, our lunches were more like, mortadella with a little prosciutto, meatball sandwiches. And kids would be like, Maria, what are you eating? I'm like, never mind. They were good, though. But it was always frittata. Sí. So
Okay, now translate for me here. What did you just say?
Frittata.
An omelet.
Yeah, a little omelet, yeah.
Yeah. So whatever was... And we never threw away food. So whatever was left over from dinner usually ended up in my lunchbox for school the next day. And you don't ever throw away bread. Mom would make homemade bread, homemade pasta, but bread was sacred. If even the littlest piece of bread fell on the floor, my grandmother would pick it up and kiss it and eat it. Nothing got thrown away. So food,
'Cause
once
she
again.
had survived without food.
Yes, more so my grandparents, but even my parents, so it made you appreciate all the hard work it went into cooking, preparing, serving, and then that hour or more. Sundays were more than an hour, as my aunt just alluded to. But the weeknight meals moved along, but they were still be home for dinner. Absolutely. And that was important.
And everything was homemade.
Oh, everything.
You didn't pick
everything.
up the box of spaghetti I have in my pantry.
No. Pasta was homemade. At some point we stopped, but we did make our homemade wine. Probably through 1970s, we all made our homemade wine. My mom.
So
had
were
a
you
huge
stomping
garden.
the grapes, Maria, like
no
Lucy
stomping,
and Ethel?
No,
No.
we had this grinding machine. I remember in the basement, which was kind of cool as well. Growing up, seeing all those traditions, we had homemade sausage, and every part of the year, we made something. Like in the winter was sausages, and my parents would grind the meat, and we'd make our sausages. In the summer, it was the jams and jellies because Ma would pick the strawberries and the blueberries. And then in the fall, like my aunt said, it was harvesting. So my mom had this massive garden, and the peppers and the tomatoes got canned, and the giardiniera, which was about an eggplant kind of a pickled mixture. And the kitchen was very busy, chaotic, all the time.
So of all these traditions, it's very, very different than life in 2025. But are you able to preserve some of them and the stories? And even traveling to Italy kind of keeps it all alive in your hearts anyway.
It does. I think, we just came back from Italy over the summer, and my siblings did go back to the small town of Machiagordina to visit my uncle in Isernia, and my cousins as well. But just, we stayed at a villa, and just the homes and the hillsides and these small towns, it's beautiful, and it's so picturesque, and I think it brings me back to say, gosh, this is maybe how Mom and Dad had it, were like in Italy. And there was no amenities in these homes back in the day. There was no running water. There was no air conditioning. They had the well, or they had to go to the river to wash their clothes or get a bucket of water. And bring it home. And then, if I had to do all that and cook, I don't know if I'd ever cook, but this is what they did. And polenta was a very big mainstay dish back in Italy because it was a ground up cornmeal, and they'd make a polenta, which during the day was their bigger meal in Italy. And it still is, I think, to this day, I believe. But in the farm, polenta was transportable. So they could bring this massive dish of polenta to the farm to feed the workers during the day. But polenta was, what did they, like a peasant food, which today I think is not even viewed as peasant food
It's
anymore.
kind of rustic.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a better word nowadays.
It's a delicacy almost. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Yes. And I may not be a good cook, but I know my aunt is, so she can speak to that as well.
Well, they had the corn.
Yes.
They raised the corn. Then they would bring the corn. There's some. I've seen it done when we go to Italy visit our cousin. They harvest the corn, and they put the corn on the entire ear of the corn in a machine that separates the kernels from the core, and then these kernels are kept and brought to the mill as they need the cornmeal. So the cousins will have these sacks of kernels of corn that then, when needed, we'll bring it to the mill, and they have the cornmeal. And one of the things I bring home from the town is the cornmeal. Because it's raised by them, by the cousins. There are no additives to it. And
It's your family cornmeal.
Oh, it's wonderful to make polenta, and I vary a little bit because the town where we go, my husband's birth town, and the town where I was born, we all have different recipes of the polenta. Yes. So I used my mother's recipe for it, when she used to put the kidney beans in it, which gave you protein in the polenta, because you use what you had, okay, and you make it as nutritious as possible. So you have the tomatoes, you make the tomato sauce. You have the corn, you have the polenta, and you have the beans. You boil them dry, and then you put them in the polenta, and it gives you extra nourishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then now, like Eric, like you said, it's a delicacy, but
Yes.
like Maria said, it was a staple because that's what they had, and they used what they had, and it was delicious. It was made with sauce. It was made with roasted vegetables, and the variety. It was presented a little differently. It was presented with honey on top, like a breakfast food with honey. My husband remembers all these things. So, different ways of eating it. Yeah.
You presented such a beautiful picture of the hillside and the mountains and the homes. And I think about your parents then coming to the South End and how adaptable they were to find a new place with a new language, with new job skills at the Carter factory for kids' clothes. And they thrived, and your families thrived. And how wonderful.
Yeah, it
That's
makes
a
you
great
truly
legacy.
appreciate and be proud of how much they did to help us get to where we are today. I mean, we're first generation, and we are all very well educated. We learned to appreciate, and they pushed us, even though my parents didn't have schooling, formal schooling, pretty much at all. They realized the value and the importance of it, and all 5 of us children in my family are all educated into college degrees, etc. And they kind of really understood the importance of it very early on. Yeah.
Well, it's the values that were
Yeah.
given, the values and work ethics.
Yes. Oh, very much.
You don't go on welfare. It was not acceptable because it indicated the family could not support his family. So you worked hard. Okay, whatever job was available, you weren't choosy because the job was giving you money, and the money give you a living. So it was within all of this, within the Sunday meals and having your own garden, making your own wine, the values wasn't not necessarily taught verbally. They were taught more by example. Okay, you went to school. What did you learn today? Did you work hard? Did you do your homework? Okay, my parents couldn't really decipher, look at a report card and said, "Oh, this is good." They simply asked me, "Is it good?" I said, "Yes, it's good." Okay, keep up. Okay.
They couldn't help you with math. You had to figure it out.
Yes.
And while they probably had some serious skills, but it just didn't translate to
There were different skills.
your school environment.
Yeah. But the values were solid. You work hard. You do your best. You're the best person you can be. Be honest. Be sincere. Help when you can. Help your neighbor. Help your family. Like Maria, my mother always used to talk about your mother and say, "How does that lady do it? She's got 5 kids of her own. She has her in-laws living with her." And then that was on the first floor of a 2-family house. On the second floor lived her own parents, Maria's other maternal grandparents. With the paternal grandparents, but on the second floor were the paternal grandparents. So the family dynamics really extended. Yeah. And my mother used to say, "How does that lady do it? She has 5 kids of her own, and she has her in-laws living with her." Yeah. And it worked.
It did. They
made it work. They made it work. One bathroom.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah. And we didn't think anything of it.
No, it was normal.
I mean, it was normal.
Right.
Still chaotic, but normal. And
and appreciative for this country.
Oh,
now, we're
very much
talking
so.
about the Italian culture here, but I'm sure Maria agrees with me. When it comes to flag waving, it's the USA. Thank God for this
Yes.
wonderful country. And they used to say, when you see the Statue of Liberty, when you come on a boat and you see the Statue of Liberty, it's very symbolic of the liberty and the opportunities.
And there were many, and they took advantage of all those opportunities. Like you said, there were factories they went to work at, and they learned skills, and they applied them to different jobs that became available to them. They did the best they could, but family was always important to do the best they could for us, and that's makes you certainly appreciate all that hard work. But I know when my mother came to this country and lived with her aunt and uncle in the Six Corners area, you know, in Italy, all the houses in the old towns had flat roofs. So she came to this country and saw all the roofs that were pointed. She goes, "Why are there so many churches? All these," she didn't know. These homes to her looked all like churches because they all had kind of steeple, little pointed roofs. And so, you know, her impression, but they acclimated. And she was excited to learn the language and assimilate to the American culture. Because like you said, they had so much respect for this country and they gave them all that opportunity.
Yes. And to become a U.S. citizen.
That's right.
Oh, what a feather in everybody's hat.
Yes.
To be a U.S. citizen.
That's
to
right.
become a citizen of this country.
Yes.
That was such an accomplishment that was so celebrated and so looked forward to with such pride.
I have goosebumps.
Yes.
True. It's all true. Yeah.
Absolutely. We've talked a lot about where you came from and the roots and the foundation. You both are educated. You worked hard for many, many years. You had families. Tell us how you're enjoying and filling your retirement now. Let's get to the present. What's happening with Toni and Maria? Well, we know Toni's teaching. She's very busy here. Wednesdays.
Yes. We also bought a home in Italy. We bought a home in my town, my husband's hometown. So we go there approximately 3 months out of the year. And I am just so at home, in a sense, when my neighbors come over, oh, sei arrivata, you know, benvenuta. They give me the welcome. They bring me cookies, welcoming me. I bring them little gifts, tokens, and they're so appreciative of that. I go to the bar, and you're greeted as a member of the community that's back home. So we wanted to have that experience. And for many years, we went back and forth. Finally, we decided if we want to have it, we've got to do it now. Otherwise, you know, it would just be too late. So we bought a home there. The house itself was like over 100 years old, but it's been redone with 3 bathrooms, 3 floors, 3 bathrooms, all the amenities in it. And we love having visitors. I have family members come over. My kids have been there, the grandkids. We did that to continue for the other generations, definitely for my husband and I to enjoy it, but for our children to enjoy it, for the grandkids to enjoy, and have the legacy tied to the country. We wanted this to remain constant in their lives too, not just ours. And we wanted a continuation of this gift of knowing another country so well, or having ties to your roots, to the language and to the culture.
That's great.
Amazing.
I know, it's beautiful.
Anything else you would like to share, Maria? You return to your homeland of Florida every year.
Yeah, we also, for 3+ months out of the year, go south, go to Florida, just play golf. A little different than what my aunt and uncle do, but yeah.
But you get your break there.
Yes,
and
yes, we do. Just a break from the cold winter months, and we do that. We play golf. We we volunteer every now and then, and stay busy and
enjoy your grandkids.
Well, that's easy. I was just going to say again, family. We stay busy with the grandchildren and with relatives and everyone
and
else
you host
around.
them, and so you're doing
sure.
a lot of.
We're active. Yeah, I would say it's
because they're
busy.
little still.
We stay active, absolutely. Yeah.
Isn't that great?
The Stories from the View podcast is available on the LCAT 01028 channel on YouTube, and it's on Spotify. If you have a story you'd like to share on the program, contact the Pleasant View Senior Center at 525-5436. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Stories from the View.